Hi, I'm Mosik, and you're watching another episode of Artist Life. Have you ever contemplated of how the old master artists painted? What was it that they were trying to portray through their art? Well, today I'll be sharing with you some of my thoughts in regards to how they might have completed their painting. So in today's episode, I'll be talking about Rembrandt van Rijn. So if you're ready, let's start. Rembrandt van Rijn was a Dutch draftsman, painter, and printmaker, an innovative and prolific master in three media. He is generally considered one of the greatest visual artists in the history of art, and the most important in Dutch art history. Unlike most Dutch painters of the 17th century, Rembrandt's works depict a wide range of style and subject matter, from portraits and self-portraits to landscapes, genre scenes, allegorical and historical scenes, and biblical and mythological themes, as well as animal studies. His contributions to art came in a period of great wealth and cultural achievement that historians call the Dutch Golden Age, when Dutch art, especially Dutch paintings, although in many ways antithetical to the Baroque style that dominated Europe, was extremely prolific and innovative and gave rise to important new genres. So I hope that was informative, and we are here in my painting space, and I can't wait to start. Let's go. So for this painting, I'm going to be using a 8x10 canvas, Prussian blue, alizarin red, Indian yellow, ivory black, burnt sienna, zinc white, titanium white, glazing medium, a detail brush, a number 2, and a number 4 flat bristle brush. There's a few steps that I want you to make sure that we follow through, and the first step is called a compitura and the drawing stage. The compitura is the stain or the tint on the canvas that you see, and you are noticing that I'm sketching things out. Now, I just want to inform you that this sketching part took me about 35 minutes, so you're just going to see the highlight of it. So here's the final product of my sketching. Now, once you're done with sketching, what we want to do is start focusing on 3 tones. So the tint that I have on my canvas that Rembrandt would have had is a middle tone, and that would be tinted throughout the whole canvas. Once you are done with that part, you want to make sure that you start adding all the dark tones or the dark values on the canvas. So as you notice, the hat and the face, I am making that into one dark tone, one type of dark tone. So I am simplifying at this stage, and the way I'm holding the brush obviously is flat, and I always can switch it back and forth just to make sure that I am gliding the darks on the canvas. So my example is on the left side, as you can see, of the screen, and as I go through the whole canvas, I am only focusing on where my darks at this time would be. Keep in mind that you do have some light tones throughout the painting, like the left side of the face, but I don't want to focus on that. I just want to make sure that I apply the dark tones where I see them. The color that I'm using is burnt umber with a little bit of ivory black. So when you mix that, you would actually get this shade that I have. It's like a really dark brown shade. The layer of the paint is very thin, so at this stage, just make sure that you are very thinly applying the dark tones to where they belong. Okay, so with this part, if you follow along the left side of the screen and to what I'm doing, again, I'm just basically focusing on the dark tones. Now with this large brush, what I am doing is I am simplifying, or actually I am getting rid of all the indifferences in the painting, and I am just creating a sort of like a flatness, a very even thin layer of dark tones. Because of the changes in value, I am starting to see a three-dimensional image in front of me, where before it was only my sketch. So now I am applying a darker shade, a darker value. So with Rembrandt, he worked with 5 major tones. So the first one is dark tone, the second one is a middle tone, the light tone, and also he had 2 extra tones, darkest dark, and that is what I'm doing here on the hat, and also eventually later would be the lightest light. Now, since he had great understanding of how Leonardo da Vinci painted, I believe that he got this 5-tone theory from Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo used to also paint in 5 values. So on top of the dark, I am going with a darker tone. So just any part on the painting that's dark is what I'm working on. So the idea is to quickly apply all the darks, all the lights eventually. Do not get rid of your middle tone. As you could see, the left side of the clothing on the shoulder is light. The left side of the face also is light. And now I am using zinc white. Zinc white is this transparent white, very translucent. That is what I'm using for the face. He was using flake white, I believe, but because in today's scene, flake white has a lot of lead, I want to stay away from that. So I do recommend, highly recommend, you switch to zinc white. It does very similar things that a flake white would do, but it's much safer to use. So if you notice, I'm going a little bit lighter than my example, and I am only applying all the light tones to where I see them. And it's usually on the left side of the face. As you notice, I switched my brush to a detail brush because that will help me to get into fine details with my lights, and with a bigger brush I won't be able to do that. Here on the hair, I am applying some light tones just to create some change. with the hair. And I am using Indian yellow at this point. If you notice, the hair is a little bit lighter than anything else. Indian yellow is a very transparent yellow. You can actually see through this color. So I can come back and stain or glaze over this process. At this stage, I'm gently laying certain colors, like on the hair and also on the back. I used Prussian blue with yellow ochre to get the shade of green. And I'm just gently and very thinly applying the color in the back. And my brush stroke is very direct, vertical. And what I intend on doing with this green is to come back later with yellow ochre or Indian yellow and to just stain this brightness out if I can. Just to quickly talk about the example that I'm working from. Now, I found a few variations of different prints of this self-portrait of Rembrandt. Some of them were more yellowed in the back, some of them were a little bit brighter. So after discovering differences in prints, what I think we're going to do is put a little bit of my own interpretation with the colors, because I'm not really sure what the actual color of the print is. If you notice, I'm gently laying in the color. Now the purpose behind this is to not get rid of the yellow ochre that's on the canvas, but to just stain and gently lay in the green color. Okay, so with my brush, I am doing a cross-hatch motion, and also underneath the hair right there is a little green, so I just wanted to apply that color. Actually it's more yellowy green, I see that now, so but I can always come back and stain that Indian yellow over that. So continuously do that to the background. Again, please do not use that much paint. As you notice, I am not using a lot of paint. It's very thin, and the medium that I'm using is glazing and blending medium that I have from Winsor & Newton. So those are usually nice. So the way Rembrandt would be working with is with the technique called sfumato, which means soft edges. And also another technique that he is always using is called velaturas, which means using transparent and semi-transparent colors. Now, going over my colors again as I do this painting, I just wanted to point out that I am using transparent colors. So for example, Indian yellow is a transparent color, Prussian blue is a transparent color, alizarin red is a transparent color. So when you use these colors, you don't necessarily need to use this glazing medium all the time. As long as you thin out the paint and use a dry brush technique, sometimes you can use that. And other times, like in the background, if you want, you can use the glazing medium, which works. Now with my detail brush, I do need to go in and work with some details to correct the drawing. Why am I using a detail brush and let's say not a number 2 brush. Well, keep in mind that the size of my canvas is a 8 by 10, so it is easier for me to use a detail brush. Now, if you notice, I switched over to a number 2 brush, and in this area on the face, it's easier for me to just thinly lay in that transparent Indian yellow that I was talking to you about earlier. And also, don't forget the zinc white that I'm always using. So in this case, right now, I'm using zinc white and Indian yellow. Okay, so why am I tinting this part of the face, the right side of the face, with this color? Well, sometimes when you have a undertone that's a little on the dark side, what you do is you go in and just thinly lay in a color to lighten it, and when that area dries, you can go back in with your transparent colors. So if you notice, I've thinned down my paint and I am working on the shadow area. The color of this area on the hat is again Prussian blue with a little bit of ivory black and also glazing medium. I wanted to glaze this area in, and you can bring that color into the hair like I'm doing, just to create some more dark tones. And also I will need to go back and soften the edges of these colors. So just to simplify things, all you're doing is laying in the correct shades of color and tone. Now this is one of the last stages of the painting. So if you notice, again, like I said before, I switched over to color on the hat, on the hair a little bit, and also on his clothing. It's very tonal, so I don't necessarily need to do much with the clothing. So, but mostly on the hat, the hair, and eventually the face. How much fun I'm having with this painting. It's really not as hard as it seems. So if you notice, I've moved on to the clothing, and I am laying in some color, keeping in mind that the actual print that you see on the left side, the coloration is slightly different at this point, but we are going to go back and lay in some colors on top of this Prussian blue, black, and a little bit of white that I've used at this point. As you can see with my large brush, I'm adding darker tones into his clothing, and eventually it'll start making more sense. Some gray shades on top where that collar is. So with this detail brush, I'm working on the details on the color. Keep in mind that this is all wet on to wet process, which means that the painting is wet, and with a detail brush I'm just going into the wet area. And on the hair, adding some changes. I am using burnt umber at this stage. So burnt umber is very important. It's going to give that warmth to the painting. So with my detail brush, I am correcting a few things on the face, and I have already started applying some color. I am holding back. If you notice, I'm not using a large brush, I'm using a small brush to tint and correct as I see. The drawing of the mouth is slightly off, so I am correcting that. You're constantly working with a few things. You're working on your drawing, that's number one. Number two, you're holding on to your darks and lights and improving on it. And also number three is the color process. So these three things are very important for artists, because it helps us to stay in control of our painting. Again, if my painting was larger, I would not be using a detail brush. I would probably be using a number 1 brush or a number 2 brush. So it just seems that when I need to correct my drawing, I'm always switching to a detail brush. But when I need to lay in the color with a broader brush stroke, I'm always using a large brush. I'm not using a lot of colors. Rembrandt created his distinctive portraits with a small palette of colors, dominated by dark earth tones and golden highlights. He was a master of chiaroscuro, an Italian term for a style using strong lights and heavy shadows to create depth in a painting. Rembrandt used it to emphasize the faces and hands in his portraits. A modern version of Rembrandt's palette should always include these colors: yellow ochre, burnt sienna, titanium and zinc white, Indian yellow, alizarin red, Prussian blue, and also ivory black. As you can see, I started painting the background. Now focus on the colors that I'm using. I'm using Prussian blue, a little bit of Indian yellow, and also white. I am purposely keeping this area bright. So if you'll permit me to change the color a little bit. So I'm not using a lot of paint. I'm still glazing the colors onto the canvas. And I am getting this ready, the background ready for the final tint that I want to do with Indian yellow. Now, I don't have a lot of paint on my brush, So I just have enough to stretch it, to thin it out, and to glaze it onto the canvas. With my brush, I want to soften any hard edges that I may find. Now I've started to lay in the yellow. I am using yellow ochre at this stage. So instead of Indian yellow, I changed my mind at this point. So my brush strokes are pretty vertical. So again, with my detail brush, I am working on the mustache area, the side of the face. I'm just going from one area to another, correcting as I see. What am I correcting? Well, I'm correcting both my drawing, the color, and also different parts of the painting. If I want to switch the color or change the color, I can do so. So I think I am done with this painting. Hope you enjoyed this episode of Artist Life. And if you are watching us on TV, the contact information is on the screen. Or if you are watching us on YouTube, you can always leave me a comment. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Till next time, happy painting. Bye.